Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of English for Beginners, the podcast. I am so happy you decided to spend your time with us today. This is the place where learning English feels easy, calm, and friendly. I am Jasmine, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host.
Hello, Jasmine, and hello to all our friends listening from every corner of the world. I'm Mark. If you are listening to us right now, it means you want to improve your English step by step. That already makes you an amazing person. Learning a language is a long journey, but remember, we are walking this journey together.
That is so true, Mark. Before we dive into our very exciting topic today, we have a small request for our lovely listeners. If you enjoy learning English through these real, slow conversations, please subscribe to English for Beginners, the podcast, and like this episode. It really helps our show reach more students who want to improve their lives through English.
And don't forget to share this episode with a friend. Learning with a partner is always more fun and much more effective. So, Jasmine, I have been looking forward to this all week. What are we talking about today?
Today's topic is very fun, Mark. It is a little bit dreamy. We're talking about an imaginary situation. Specifically, we're answering the question, what would you do if you became a billionaire?
Oh, wow. A billionaire. That is a lot of money. Can I be honest with you, Jasmine? When I hear the word billionaire, my brain stops working for a second. My English disappears and my imagination takes over. Suddenly, I'm not in this studio. I'm on a beautiful beach drinking fresh coconut water.
That sounds perfect. And that is exactly what we are going to learn today. When we talk about dreams or things that are not real right now, we use a special kind of grammar. Teachers call it the second conditional, but on English for Beginners, the podcast, we call it the dreamer's tense.
I love that name, the dreamer's tense. It makes grammar feel much less scary. So, friends, don't panic. This is not a boring school lesson. This is a conversation. But while we talk, you will hear and feel the grammar. We will use sentences like, if I became a billionaire, I would.
Exactly. We use this when we talk about situations that are not real in this moment. I'm not a billionaire, and Mark is not a billionaire, but we can imagine. Mark, let's start with a serious question. If you became a billionaire tomorrow morning, what would you do first?
If I became a billionaire tomorrow morning, I would sit very quietly in my kitchen. I wouldn't tell anyone, not for the first hour. I would just sit there and think, is this real? What about you, Jasmine? What would be your first move?
That is a smart idea. If I became a billionaire, I wouldn't tell anyone immediately either. I think I would take a very long nap because if I had all that money, I wouldn't feel the stress of work or chores. I would just relax and let my brain rest for a week.
That is a very honest answer. Friends, did you hear the grammar Jasmine just used? She said, if I became a billionaire, I wouldn't tell anyone. She used became, which is the past tense of become, and wouldn't, which is the short way to say would not.
Right. Let's practice that together. Listeners, repeat after me. If I became a billionaire, I would. Great. Now repeat this. I wouldn't worry anymore. Excellent. Mark, let's talk about work. If you became a billionaire, would you still come here to record English for Beginners, the podcast?
That is a deep question. If I became a billionaire, I would still record this podcast because I love talking to our listeners. But I would quit my other jobs immediately. I would say, thank you so much, I have learned a lot, but goodbye. I would be a very professional billionaire, but I would definitely leave.
I agree. I think I would invest my money into making English for Beginners, the podcast, even better. I would buy the best microphones in the world. I would hire a professional chef to cook us lunch while we work. If I were a billionaire, our studio would be in a palace.
A palace. Now we're really dreaming. Friends, listen to that structure again. Jasmine said, if I were a billionaire. Sometimes in English we say if I were instead of if I was when we are imagining things. Both are okay in conversation, but were is very common.
Let's talk about money and personality, Mark. Do you think if you became a billionaire, money would change you?
I think if I became a billionaire, I would try my best to stay the same. But money is very powerful. I think I would become more careful. I would be worried about who my real friends are. If I had billions of dollars, I would probably hide my wealth from strangers.
That is very realistic. I think if I became a billionaire, I would travel much more. I wouldn't check the prices of plane tickets. I wouldn't look at the cost of a hotel room. I would just pick a country on a map and go there.
Oh, I love that. Travel is the best way to spend money. If I became a billionaire, I would visit every small village in the mountains of Italy. I wouldn't visit the big cities. I would find the quiet places where life is slow.
That sounds so peaceful. Friends, let's practice another sentence. Repeat after us. If I had more money, I would travel the world. One more time. If I had more money, I would travel the world. You're doing great.
Jasmine, let's talk about luxury. If you became a billionaire, would you buy a big mansion? A mansion is a very, very large house.
You know, Mark, if I became a billionaire, I think I would buy a comfortable home, but not a giant mansion. I wouldn't want to get lost in my own house. I would buy a house with a big garden and a beautiful view of the ocean. If I lived by the ocean, I would be happy every day.
I feel the same way. I wouldn't buy 10 fancy cars. I would buy one very safe, very comfortable car. And I would hire a driver. If I had a driver, I wouldn't have to worry about traffic or parking. I would just sit in the back and read a book.
Having a driver is a true billionaire dream. Now, Mark, let's think about other people. If you became a billionaire, how would you help your family?
That is the most important thing. If I became a billionaire, I would make my parents' life very easy. I would pay off their house. I would tell them you never have to worry about a bill again. I would also help my sister. I would pay for her children to go to the best schools.
That is so kind. If I became a billionaire, I would do the same. I would buy a house for my mother near the park she loves. I wouldn't let my family struggle for even 1 minute. Helping family is the best part of being rich.
It really is. Now, what about strangers? If you became a billionaire, would you give money to charity?
Absolutely. If I had that much money, I would feel a big responsibility. I would build schools in places where children don't have books. I would also help animals. I would open a large shelter for dogs that don't have homes. If I helped the animals, I would feel like I was doing something good with my life.
That is powerful, Jasmine. If I became a billionaire, I would invest in education. I would create a foundation where people could learn English for free. It would be an extension of English for Beginners, the podcast. We could have teachers in every country.
That is a beautiful dream, Mark. Friends, listen to the words we are using. If I had, I would feel, I would build. This is how you talk about your heart's desires.
Let's pause for a second. We have been talking about all the good things, but Jasmine, are there any bad things? If you became a billionaire, would you be worried about anything?
Yes, I would. If I became a billionaire too fast, I might lose my perspective. I might forget how much hard work matters. If I didn't have to work for anything, I might get bored. Sometimes the struggle is what makes us strong.
I agree. If I had everything I wanted immediately, I wouldn't enjoy the small wins. I think if I became a billionaire, I would try to keep a routine. I would still wake up, make my own coffee, and go for a walk. I wouldn't want a robot to do everything for me.
No robots for me either. Now, Mark, let's do a little role play for our names, Jasmine and Mark. Listen to how we use the grammar in a quick conversation.
Jasmine, If you became a billionaire today, would you still talk to me?
Of course, Mark. If I became a billionaire, I would buy you a new car.
That is very nice of you, Jasmine. If I had a new car, I would drive you to the airport for your world travels.
Thank you, Mark. If we were both billionaires, we could move our podcast to a private island.
I love that idea, Jasmine. If we lived on an island, we would record our episodes under a palm tree.
Did you hear that, friends? We used became, had, and lived in the if part and would in the other part. This is how you talk about your heart's desires.
Let's pause for a second. We have been talking about all the good things, but Jasmine, are there any bad things? If you became a billionaire, would you be worried about anything?
Yes, I would. If I became a billionaire too fast, I might lose my perspective. I might forget how much hard work matters. If I didn't have to work for anything, I might get bored. Sometimes the struggle is what makes us strong.
I agree. If I had everything I wanted immediately, I wouldn't enjoy the small wins. I think if I became a billionaire, I would try to keep a routine. I would still wake up, make my own coffee, and go for a walk. I wouldn't want a robot to do everything for me.
No robots for me either. Now, Mark, let's do a little role play for our names, Jasmine and Mark. Listen to how we use the grammar in a quick conversation.
Jasmine, if you became a billionaire today, would you still talk to me?
Of course, Mark. If I became a billionaire, I would buy you a new car.
That is very nice of you, Jasmine. If I had a new car, I would drive you to the airport for your world travels.
Thank you, Mark. If we were both billionaires, we could move our podcast to a private island.
I love that idea, Jasmine. If we lived on an island, we would record our episodes under a palm tree.
Did you hear that, friends? We used became, had, and lived in the if part and would in the other part. This is how you talk about your heart's desires.
It really is. Now, let's go back to our billionaire questions. Jasmine, if you became a billionaire, would you still cook your own food?
Honestly, if I became a billionaire, I would never touch a frying pan again. I would hire a world-class chef. I would eat delicious food every single day. I wouldn't wash any dishes either.
Oh, I am the opposite. If I became a billionaire, I would still cook, but I would buy the best ingredients. I would buy the most expensive olive oil and the freshest vegetables. Cooking is relaxing for me, but I would definitely hire someone to clean the kitchen afterward.
That is the perfect compromise. If I had a clean kitchen without working, I might cook a little bit. Now, Mark, let's think about the world. If you became a billionaire, would you try to change the world?
I would try. If I had billions, I would invest in clean energy. I would try to help the planet. I think if we all had more money, we would solve many big problems. But money is only a tool. You need a good heart to use it well.
That is very wise. If I became a billionaire, I would focus on mental health. I would make sure everyone could talk to a doctor if they felt sad or stressed. If people were happier, the world would be a much better place.
Now, friends, take a moment now. Think about your own life. If you became a billionaire, what would you not change? That is a very important question.
That is a great question, Mark. For me, if I became a billionaire, I wouldn't change my friends. I have known my friends for many years. They knew me when I had no money. If I stayed close to them, I would stay grounded.
I feel the same. If I became a billionaire, I wouldn't change my love for simple things, like a good book or a walk in the park. You don't need $1 billion to enjoy a sunset.
Exactly. Friends, we are using the conditional tense to talk about money, but you can use it for anything. If I had more time, I would study more. If I lived in London, I would visit the museums.
Let's do a quick review before we finish this episode of English for Beginners, the podcast.
Good idea. Remember, for the if part of the sentence, use the past tense. If I became, if I had, if I lived, if I were.
And for the second part of the sentence, use would or wouldn't followed by the action. I would buy, I wouldn't work, I would help.
Don't worry about the names of the tenses. Just think about the if past, then would pattern. It is the pattern of dreams and imagination.
You have all done such a great job today. Listening to a long conversation like this is the best way to train your ears. You are getting better every single minute.
We are so proud of you. Before we go, we have one final question for you to answer in the comments. If you became a billionaire, what is the very first thing you would buy?
I can't wait to read your answers.